Hi, this is the Pixelsmith again with another tutorial. This one's going to be on exaggeration. So I have these two graphics, a washing machine and a big blue box. The goal is to have the washing machine push the box off screen so only the washing machine remains. So I've got a couple examples of this already. So this is the animation without any exaggeration whatsoever. As you can see, there's a couple keyframes. The washing machine comes in from off screen, hits the box, and then hits it again to push it further off screen. But this is just using a series of linear keyframes. So there's no acceleration, there's no easing in this, there's no exaggeration either. So what happens is it's kind of boring. I mean, it works, it does push the box off the screen, but it's not visually that appealing. Here's an example that's a little more visually appealing. So as you can see in this example, the washing machine has a lot more personality. It's overshooting its final resting position. It's also rotating a bit to make it seem like it's having to pick up speed. There's also some exaggeration here when it extends past its final resting position, and also some anticipation for when it tries to push the box the second time. It actually kind of jerks back a little bit and then rushes forward. So this in general looks a lot better, and this is what I want to create. So I'll stop that and I'll go to my start here one. I'm going to close the other two. Okay. So I want to animate the position of both, and specifically I want to animate the horizontal position, the X position. So I'm just going to highlight both layers, tap P on my keyboard to reveal position, and I've already got them separated, so X and Y. If you're not familiar with this, if you right click on the position property, separate dimensions pops up. So when it's enabled, the position splits into 2 if it's a 2D layer or 3 if it's a 3D layer properties, X and Y. And when it's disabled, as I just did, it goes back to 1. Now, the advantage of separating position is, one, if you're only going to work with horizontal or vertical motion and that's it, it may be a little easier to separate position, but if you plan on using the graph editor to edit the value graph, if you want to be able to do that on the value graph for position, you have to separate dimensions. It actually won't show up as editable there otherwise. So here's what I want to do. I'll do 15 frames. A half a second is where it's going to start. So you'll be able to see it for a half a second, and then it will slide in. So this is where I want to stop the movement. So the idea is I want to have it start off screen, come onto screen, make contact, and then stop right here, and then realize, hey, it's going to take a little more power to push this over. So then it's going to jump back and then slam forward to really shove this box out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to reset my workspace so I get rid of the text panels. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit, so I'm going to highlight my comp panel and tap comma so I can zoom out. And I want to start this off to the right side. Okay, so that'll be the first keyframe for this. And again, I'm going to deselect my two properties, click only the X property for this, and that'll be the first keyframe. So now I'll jump to 1 second. I'm just going to reset my work area. Okay, and I'm just going to hover over the value and slide it in. And I want to have it make contact with the box. If you hold down Shift while you're scrubbing the value, it'll go a little faster. I just want to have it overlap a little bit like that. Okay. So the box is going to be static pretty much until, again, the washing machine hits it. So let's do the first X keyframe of the washing machine. I'll highlight both layers and tap U just to reveal their position properties, their X position properties, just to clean up my interface a little bit. And over a couple frames, I'm just going to go to holding down Command, right arrow key. I'm going to jump about 10 frames forward. And I'm going to move the box over a little bit. That should be good. So I'll hit in on my keyboard to move the work area bar's end point to my playhead. I'll just preview this area. So it comes in, hits it, it's done. So I want to have the washing machine's animation. I want this to be the finished position of the washing machine. I'm going to tap Option / to fit this in window again. I'm going to turn off the motion blur that's enabled here, just so I can see it a little easier. And it'll preview a little faster. And I want the washing machine's position to end right here. But I want it to actually extend past its final position. So I want to actually have it overshoot its final position a little bit. So I'm just going to use J and K to make sure I'm at my second keyframe for the washing machine. And I'm just going to jump back a couple frames. 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe. Okay, and I'm just going to move the washing machine forward. So I want to have it extend a little past and into the blue box. So I'll preview that again. So to do that. So it's kind of hitting it and bouncing away. Okay. Now, I also want the box, once it slides over, I want the box to actually bounce back. So again, I'm going to make a couple frames backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And I'm just going to extend it a little bit more to the right. Past its ending position. So that the box will actually bounce over and then come back. So again, I'm having it overshoot its final resting position. So it basically moves over and comes to rest. Okay. Now, I need to make a couple of adjustments. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the timeline. And I want to make a couple of adjustments to the overall position of this. So right now, I'll slide over. So right now, the washing machine hits it at about 26 frames. So I'm going to grab that first keyframe and slide it over a bit so that I can have the message box start a little sooner. So let's preview that, see how that works. That's a little closer now in position. Okay. I'm going to take the middle keyframe of each, and I'm just going to F9 to turn that into an easing keyframe. So I can get a little bounce back. That is, the washing machine will be hitting it and then bouncing back. So it's actually, as the washing machine makes contact with the message's box is heavier, it's bigger. So it has some inertia to overcome. So the washing machine hits it and then bounces back into position. Okay. Now, the washing machine and the message box are going to rest for a second because the washing machine is going to realize, hey, you're a little heavier than I thought, so I'm going to need a little more power to push you. Okay. And yes, the washing machine has a story. This is actually a story. The washing machine is actually thinking about doing this. At least in my mind it is. So the washing machine pushes it over, and maybe it thought the box was lighter than it actually is. So maybe it thought that initial push would just push the box completely off screen, but it doesn't. So now the washing machine has to think about it. Okay. So the washing machine is going to be static for about 1 second until about the box stops, because it's got to basically realize, hey, that wasn't enough. So again, I'm using J and K to jump keyframe to keyframe. My last keyframe of the animation of the message box, I'm just going to click the Add Remove Keyframe button to give myself a box here. To give myself a keyframe here. So washing machine comes in, hits the box, bounces away, comes to rest, and then realizes that wasn't anywhere near enough. So now it's going to start moving. Again, I'm going to jump about 10 frames forward. I'm just tapping Command and the right arrow key on my keyboard. Control right arrow key if you're on Windows. You could do Control Shift arrow keys or Command Shift arrow keys to do jump 10 frames at a time. Again, I'm from 10 frames forward. And this time it needs to actually build up some power. So it's going to need to build up some speed. So usually when you do that in a cartoon, you basically go backwards before you go forwards. So it's going to exaggerate this motion a bit. So this keyframe, I'm going to have it go back till it's pretty much almost off screen. So now when you see that, it comes in, pushes it out of the way, doesn't completely move it all the way like it should. And then now it's really kind of ramping backwards. Again, I'm going to jump another 10 frames or so forward. And I'm going to move that really far to the right. So I really want to get this washing machine really kind of shoving into the message box, the blue box. Okay. Play that back. That's what we got. Okay, now the speed's off. Box isn't moving yet, but we'll deal with that. Okay. So as the box makes contact, so again, the box is going to be basically static for most of this time. Okay. I'm going to use J and K to jump to the last keyframe of the washing machine. That's where I'm going to put the next keyframe for the message box. Okay. I'm going to end up adjusting this to make the timing a little better. I'll start here. So the box gets hit and it starts to move to the right. So again, I'm going to jump forward a couple frames. I'm doing 10 at a time in this case. I'll adjust that in a bit too. And I'm going to shove the box all the way off to the side. Again, holding shift while I scrub the value will knock it all the way off. And I'm going to move my work area bar out a little bit more. Like that. Now, again, timing's off, but we're going to fix that. So just like previously, I'm actually going to have my washing machine overshoot a little bit. So again, I'll jump a couple frames backwards. And I'm just going to extend it past that center point I have a little bit further. So again, I got that motion now. It also makes it look like it's really, really pushing forward really fastly. Really fast, really fast, really fast. Okay, so now I want the box's position to be shifting when it gets hit by the washing machine. So I need to actually look right here at the washing machine's position. This is where the washing machine extends furthest to the left, where it would be hitting the box the most. So I'm going to grab that keyframe I have for the box, I'm going to drag it to the left. And as I do, notice how the animation for the box is shifting. I'm thinking I'm going to go maybe right about here. So that. Again, there's no acceleration yet, so that's off, but I'm going to adjust that. The washing machine comes in and it makes contact with the message box, and it bounces away. So now technically, this is easing, but it wouldn't be slowing down when it hits the message box. It'd be going really fast. So this really, I don't want this to ease in and out as it's doing now. I only want it to ease in. So I'm going to convert it back to a linear keyframe. So there's a keyboard shortcut for ease in and out. I can also right-click Keyframe Assistant and easy ease out. So I want it to basically be colliding with the message box at full speed, and then as it hits at full speed, it loses that power, so it bounces away slower. So I want this one to ease out. Okay. Now, it's, again, as it moves, it's going to lose that speed some more, so it's going to slow down and come to rest. So this keyframe, where it comes to rest, would be easing in. So right-click Keyframe Assistant, I can easy ease in. The keyboard shortcuts for easy ease are F9. Shift F9 is easy ease in. Command Shift F9 or Control Shift F9 on Windows is easy ease out. So you can use the right-click command or you can use the keyboard shortcut. So now, let me just preview this area. That's what I've got. So it's colliding at a high speed. It's simply slowing down as it bounces away and then comes to rest again finally. Now, if I want to add a little more acceleration to that, I could actually take the first keyframe. Yeah, it's off screen, so you're probably not really going to see this, but I could actually add ease out to that first keyframe. Since most of it happens off screen, you really don't see much of that, but it does actually give maybe a little sense of more motion to this, a little more speed. Okay. Now, when that box gets hit, it doesn't want to move. So that box, it's sitting there, it's pretty heavy, it's got a lot of inertia, it's sitting there. So again, it's going to be pushed away a little slower. So I'm going to right click on it, Keyframe Assistant, I'm going to ease that out. So it slowly moves away from this keyframe. Lower a little bit more. Okay. So it starts off slower, picks up speed in the middle, and again, it starts to lose that speed. So it eases in and then out again, and finally comes to rest. Okay. So I'm going to take that last keyframe, Assistant, easy ease it in. So now what I end up with is a little more sense of bouncing. Okay. Right, now. So again, once the washing machine is finished, it's sitting there for a little while, then it starts to like jerk back. So again, it's paused. So it had to pick up speed. So the keyframe where the washing machine starts to move backwards, it would start off slower. So keyframe assistant, it will ease out. So it'll start off slower, ease out, and then again it eases in as it finally reaches its furthest back point. So I'm going to grab it. I'll ease that one in. Okay. So it, and again, once it slows down as it reaches, it's going to really slam forward fast, make contact with the blue box again, the message box, and then again it's going to slow down. So I'm going to ease it out. And the last keyframe it's going to ease in. So again, as it uses all of its energy hitting that box really hard, pushing it out of the way, it's going to actually then really come back to rest. So this last keyframe will ease in. And just looking at the washing machine's motion, that's what I've got. Okay. Now a little more on the box. So again, it eases in and out as it comes to rest, then back. And then the washing machine jerks back. Like so. Okay, now the only problem is it starts moving before the washing machine connects with it. And you can tell that that looks a little off. So I need to again adjust that keyframe of the washing machine. First I'm going to give the keyframe of the box. I'm just keeping the box, sorry. I'm going to ease that one out. That actually makes the timing match a little better. I could probably tweak it a little bit. On my Mac, Option and the arrow keys, I believe it's Control and the arrow keys on Windows, lets you nudge keyframes. So I can basically just highlight a keyframe, use that keyboard shortcut to nudge it frame at a time through space, and I can actually adjust that positioning. Okay, so a little longer preview. It's like that. Not bad. Yes. And again, you can adjust that a little more if you want to. Adjust that motion. You really want to kind of play with that until you get the positioning down the way you want. And keep in mind, when you're previewing it one frame at a time, when you're just scrubbing through your timeline, it's going to look different than when you actually play it at full speed. So, test it out. You got to try it. The more you do it, the easier it'll become to figure out how far things should be moving. Okay. Now, the last keyframe, it's off screen, so it's probably not going to matter that much, but again, it would come to rest, so I'm going to grab that last keyframe assistant, I'm going to ease it in. And that gives me my motion. Okay. Now, and when I turn on motion blur, I get a little more sense of speed with that one. Makes the motion match a little better. It's not bad. Turn that off again. So another thing I added in the other example was a little rotation. So as the washing machine is running forward really fast, its rotation would actually be adjusted. And I've already changed the anchor point of the washing machine to the bottom, so when I rotate it, it'll actually rotate properly. So for my washing machine, I'm just going to turn on rotation, so Shift R. Okay, so it's going to start off at its resting position off screen, rotated a little bit to the right. So I'm just going to take my rotation tool, I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to rotate it a bit like that. And I'll turn on the keyframe. Okay. Now, as it slams forward, when it connects that box, it's really going to kind of want to bash heads with it. So it's going to rotate forward a bit under the front wheel. So now I end up with that happening. Okay. And again, I'm going to ease that opening keyframe. Easy ease out. So it'll be moving a little faster as it completes the rotation. Now, when it hits that box, it's going to bounce back and away. So I'm going to pretty much a couple frames after that just have it rotate back onto its real wheel. So I end up with a contact position and a recoil. And when it finally comes to a rest, that's when it's going to return back to its 0 degrees. So just like when the position bounces away, so would the rotation. And again, if I just preview this area, it'll give me that. That might be a little too fast. So it connects. Again, it used a lot of energy when it connected, so it would be losing some of that force. So it would basically be easing out a bit. So it connects at full speed, loses force. And when it bounces back again, that would be easing. I'll ease that. In again. Because again, it slows down as it approaches the second keyframe. And then when it finally comes to rest, again, it's losing force. That's why it's coming to rest, so it's going to ease in as well. So I end up with kind of a motion like that. That bounce. Now, that might be a little too close, so I'm going to grab the second 2 keyframes and just Option and right arrow on my keyboard, nudge them over a little bit. So it's not quite so bouncy. Okay. And again, maybe a little slower on that last keyframe. So I'll just move it over one more frame and see how that looks. Yeah, a little more natural like that, I think. Okay. And again, so it's at rest for a while, and then it starts to move backwards. And again, as it starts to move backwards, pull itself backwards, it's going to rotate again. So right before this point, it's going to be static, so I'm just going to make another keyframe for rotation. Okay. And then it starts to move backwards. As it does, it's going to rotate over its back wheel. Okay. And then it shoots forwards. I'm actually going to move that. So it starts off here, moves backwards, and as it shoots forward, it's going to rotate to its rear wheel. Okay. Like so. I should do that backwards. I did that backwards, sorry. Sorry, as it slams forward, it makes contact, it would actually be forward. And up until that point, it would be backward. Yeah, that's the movement. Yeah, like that. So as it jerks back in position, it's also jerking back in rotation. So it really kind of slams onto it. I'm going to press Option / to fit in position, and again, so it moves back. So it's going to ease out of that rotation keyframe. And as it makes contact, again, it's going to ease out of that. So it slams forward. And then again, its final resting position will go back to 0. Okay. And if I wanted to, I could actually add a little more exaggeration to that by overshooting the rotation as well as how I overshot the position. And that would work as well, if I want to add a little more exaggeration to it. That's not bad, that's not bad, that's not bad. So it comes back, slows down. I'm going to add easy ease to this rotation. So I should get that, yeah. That kind of motion for the final animation. So adding exaggeration especially in this case with overshoot, is a matter of looking and trying to figure out how the objects would be colliding and working in real life. So it is a matter of trial and error. You're going to have to adjust the position of the keyframes. You're going to have to adjust the easing. So the more you're familiar with physics and how physical bodies connect, the easier it becomes, but it's still always a matter of trial and error no matter what you do, pretty much. So it worked actually pretty well in this situation, but different kinds of motion, different kinds of objects will behave differently.